Welcome to episode 109 of the Family Answer Man podcast, where today we're talking about dealing with narcissistic abuse within families from a biblical worldview. I'm your host, David Orgis, and I am joined by Dr. Mark Crosby. He's a pastor, educator, mental health professional, and he is our resident expert here on the Family Answer Man podcast. Now, the Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We're not able to give specific advice to your situation. So for in-depth answers to your questions, we do encourage you to seek professional counsel specific to your unique circumstances. Before we jump in, I want you to go ahead and do us a favor, hit that notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of the Family Answer Man. And don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. If you do that, it really helps us out a lot. We appreciate that greatly. And as always, you can grow the Family Answer Man community by inviting your friends and your family to join you on this journey of building stronger, healthier, happier families. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today. Yes. This is episode 109. That's a lot of episodes in the books.
Time's flying.
Yeah, that's right. And we've got a good topic for today. Yeah. I think a topic that people may Realize that they have dealt with, and right. Maybe some that don't realize that they've dealt with this right. in their family. Right. Dealing with narcissistic abuse within families. Yeah. Is it pretty common?
It's perhaps more common than we realize, and perhaps more common, yesteryear, because, years ago, we really were not that aware of the narcissistic abuse that were in families, whereby maybe a spouse or a parent would be condemning in some cases, would be negligent in some cases, would be very deriding in some cases. And we didn't see it in those days, I'm talking back in the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, as being abusive as far as a narcissist in your life. But today, we're realizing and recognizing that narcissistic abuse does occur in families. So if you are being threatened, put down, not blessed, basically constantly being punished just for being who you are. Hey, I like basketball. Now there's always kind of jokes about, only real, athletes play football kind of thing.
Right.
And so we're recognizing what that does and the impact that makes. And so again, or even between a husband and wife, where the wife is constantly, deriding and berating the husband for every little thing, or vice versa. The husband's berating and deriding the wife for every little thing. There's no blessing. There's no connection. There's no sense of grace or attachment. And so this narcissistic abuse becomes a reality now in our homes, and it begins to impact the psyche of everyone involved in the home. And so now we have a better understanding as to what it is, what it does, and what we can do to hopefully improve it.
Yeah, and that's really difficult because when it impacts one, it impacts the entire system of the family. If you have a question and you want to have your question answered by the Family Answer Man, you can email us at familyanswerman@liveoak.church. familyanswerman@liveoak.church. We would love to hear from you and answer your question for you. But today, the question that we have that came in is this. It says, I have 4 grown children that are all married. I believe that I was a good parent and that I helped my kids all of their lives. I've given cars, money, opportunities, all to them. The one time I didn't agree or comply, and now they won't speak to me. 3 of the 4 haven't spoken to me in a year. Wow. How can someone do that? Is there a diagnosis for this, and what can I do?
So again, as we mentioned before, narcissistic abuse really is a reality in the life of so many people, especially in our families. Many of us don't know the prognosis or how the problem of the narcissist begins. And so a lot of research is now being poured into this subject. And the most popular consensus, I believe, the most accurate research many are looking at is the fact that this is a genetic problem, that genetics plays a big part in our personality and our personality disorder. And so genetics does play an important part in the narcissist and the person who has this narcissistic personality disorder. But also, some will argue that there's, in addition to that, what's called extreme parenting. Extreme parenting basically is defined as that person who raises their child on a satin pillow.
Okay.
In other words, everywhere they go, they are the best, they're the most, they're told how great they are, how wonderful they are. They get the best of everything, and everyone is expected to acquiesce to their wishes and their desires. And what we call, or what we used to call in my world, the brat. They're raising the proverbial brat.
Yeah.
The one who's entitled, the one who believes that, again, he or she gets to have anything and everything, that everyone needs to respond to them accordingly. And so they're raising the brat. And so the brat grows up to be a narcissist in many cases. But the other extreme is the neglected, bullied, and abused. And this person becomes the narcissist because they are not going to have that happen to them when they get older. They're going to have the ability, the authority, the power, so that no one ever hurts them again. So no one ever takes advantage of them again. So no one ever uses or abuses or neglects them again. And so what happens is the abused becomes the abuser. The bullied becomes the bully. And so now you begin to have these two extreme parenting styles that raises up these individuals who become what we call today the person with the narcissistic personality disorder. So these are some of the ways in which this happens. So the prognosis is not good for the narcissistic personality disordered person. It doesn't mean they can't change. It just means that they don't want to, and or they don't believe they need to. The old saying is, in our world, you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Right. Yeah.
You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And so a lot of these individuals do not acknowledge they have a problem. They do not acknowledge that the problem is theirs. They have what is called an ego sinkhole, whereby they want to pull down everybody with them.
I like the imagery of that, the ego sinkhole.
And what it is they just want to pull everyone's ego right down with them. And so, and they also do what's called leveling. Leveling means I'm going to shoot you down to build myself up. And I'm going to build myself up so I can shoot you down. And so that leveling begins to happen. And so they trample your rights. They trample your wishes, and they're always asking, what's wrong with everybody around me? Or they'll always ask, what's wrong with you? Why are you so fill in the blank? Why are you so sensitive? Why are you so anxious? Why are you so depressed? Why are you so, what's wrong with you? Why don't you, do better? Why don't you have better? Why don't you, speak better? Whatever. And so they're constantly trampling the rights and wishes of others, and they're constantly, putting other people down. And so the point is this. For the wife, for the husband, for the parent even, of a narcissistic personality disordered person, or the narcissist in short, don't try to fix them.
Okay.
Don't try to fix them. You must take them as is, as they say.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I've some colleagues who will say, to their clients who are in premarital counseling, whatever, remember, take your spouse as is. Don't try to change them. Don't try to, restructure them. Don't try to rewire them. You have to take them as is, because if you try to do that, you're going to frustrate them and you're going to frustrate yourself.
Okay.
So that's important to note.
Yeah. And now some people would say, wait a minute, so we're not supposed to grow at all. We're not supposed to change. What would be the balance for that?
We can grow and we can change, but we cannot make someone change.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
We can grow, we can change, and hopefully we will. Hopefully we will mature. Hopefully we will get better. Hopefully we will see things differently. Hopefully, by the grace of God and the Spirit of God working in us, we will become more like Jesus, if you will. But again, that's not something that we can make someone do.
Right.
That's something that has to happen from the inside out as the Spirit of God works in their life, etc. And so again, this is very important. But if I'm trying to change someone, if I'm trying to make someone do something they don't want to do, if I'm trying to make someone feel something they don't want to feel, then we have a problem. Yeah. Because we begin to now take control over someone that we have no control over. So anyway, that's very important to note. And so again, so the narcissistic person or family member, they begin to see in their family who they don't like. Or maybe in their place of business, or maybe even in their church, or maybe even in their neighborhood, or their circle of friends or acquaintances. Because the narcissist has certain people they just cannot mesh with. Okay. There's certain people they just don't like. And so in this question where this father has these children, and now they're no longer speaking to him, So if you just tuned in, this is what we're talking about. A father has children, the kids don't
grown
speak to
children
him.
that are
grown
married,
children, grown children who don't speak to him. What's going on there? And I'll argue that in every family where there's a narcissist, there's certain people the narcissist just doesn't like. For example, they don't like people with boundaries. So when this dad says, hey, look, I've given you money, I've given you cars, I've given you opportunities, but you know what? I'm not going to do this or that. Now, all of a sudden, he created a boundary. And now, all of a sudden, we're not speaking to dad because dad created a boundary and we don't like that. And so narcissists don't like people who create boundaries. The narcissist doesn't like the neighbor who puts up the fence. It says, this is where your property line ends and where mine begins, kind of thing. The narcissist doesn't like a person saying, you know what, I don't take calls after 8 o'clock or whatever. The narcissist doesn't like the pastor who says, you know what, when I'm done on Sunday at noon, I'm going to be finished, for the day. So I'm not doing any visitation on Sunday afternoon. Right. And a lot of people say, well, wait a minute. We own you. You're supposed to do that. So the narcissist doesn't like the person with boundaries. Secondly, the narcissist doesn't like the person who's independent. Because the narcissist wants the person in their life to be dependent on them. They want to create this codependency. We've talked about that before. But they don't like the person who is independent, who's an independent thinker, who makes it clear, hey, I want you in my life, but I don't need you in my life. I can do just fine with you. I can do just fine without you. And so the narcissistic person doesn't like that person who's independent. They don't like the person who uses wisdom and who recognizes their manipulation. So if you call on God for wisdom, if you're a person who seeks wisdom, if you're a person who prays for wisdom, if you're a person who acts and lives out of wisdom, then the narcissist is not going to like you because they recognize that you see through them, that you recognize their manipulation.
So your use of wisdom is a challenge to them.
Yeah, exactly. Because those who use wisdom, those who practice wisdom, they can see through, in many cases, the manipulation around them. Next, the narcissist, they don't like those who challenge them or become assertive towards them. So the narcissist wants to always have the say, they always want to have the agenda, they always want to have the idea, and they don't want anyone challenging them. They don't want anyone giving a different point of view. They don't want anyone to become assertive towards them. They don't like those who challenge them. And fifthly, the narcissist, they don't like those who are authentic and can see, again, through them. The narcissist struggles with authenticity because they're all about image. And so there's the real narcissist, and then there's the real person, I should say, and then there's the image they want you to see. And so they don't like it when they see a person who's really authentic, that what you see is what you get, that person's the same on the inside as they are on the outside, because the narcissist realizes that person can see through them. So what happens is they push back, they punish, they won't speak to their dad for a year. So again, for those who are just tuning in, we're talking about these kids who won't speak to their dad after their dad has done all things for them. These are grown children, if you will. And so this dad is worried and concerned about what is going on. Who am I dealing with? What can be done? So the narcissist resorts to abuse. When they don't get their way, when things don't go their way, when they are realizing there's a person who is creating boundaries, when they realize there's a person who can see through them, when they realize that there's a person who they cannot manipulate, they will then now resort to what's called narcissistic abuse. And here are 10 things, if you will, that you can look at that would be considered narcissistic abuse. Number one, they don't apologize. Everyone has a problem with them. And they'll tell you that. Everyone has a problem with them. Everyone's wrong with them. And they will not apologize. And they'll try to make you feel, even though you did nothing wrong, they'll try to make you feel like you are the problem. That you're the one who did this. That this is all your fault.
So is that where you hear the apology of, I'm sorry you feel like, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt.
Exactly. In other words, they will apologize, but in the sense of, but ultimately it's your fault.
Right.
Ultimately, you did this to yourself. Yeah. Ultimately, this is on you. Ultimately, this is what you're about. And so they won't take, the blame, if you will.
Yeah, they're apologizing in language, but not in actual content.
Exactly.
They don't take any accountability.
Exactly. No accountability. Everyone has a problem with them. They will not apologize. And and you're right, if they do a quote unquote apologize, it will be basically, you're the problem. This is you're too sensitive. You're too enmeshed in the situation, whatever it may be, and they will not apologize. So everyone has a problem with them. And so again, what happens to the person who's involved with the narcissist, they start to believe, well, maybe it is me. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am the one that's wrong. Maybe I am the one that should have done more. Maybe I should have said more. Maybe I should have given more. Maybe I should have not, created that boundary. Maybe I should have, acquiesced and said, yes, I'll do this, even though I didn't really want to. And so they start, again, blaming themselves. But number two, the narcissist then will throw tantrums, and they'll tell you how entitled they are, and they'll begin to threaten you. So in other words, they'll start saying things, but I deserve this. You did such and such, therefore I deserve this, or this is something that you owe me, or you owe this to me. I'm the one that you're supposed to take care of. I'm the one you're supposed to do this for. I'm the one you're supposed to. You owe me. I'm entitled. And if you don't do this or that, they begin to threaten. I'm not going to speak to you ever again. Don't come to my wedding. I've heard that one once or twice, right. In my 37 years of doing this. Don't come to my wedding. Don't come, you won't see your grandkids. You won't see your grandkids ever again. You won't see your child ever again. If you don't do what I say, you'll never have this. You'll never see that. And so there's these real serious threats that the narcissist will throw out there as a tantrum of sorts when they're not getting, their way. So this is their way of punishing. And the reality is this is a type or form of abuse. And I've said this many, many times that when you use a child for leverage,
right.
That to me is a very dangerous and just malicious way of living.
Right.
And so they'll do that. You'll never see your child again. I'll take the child and I'll take off. I'll run. That sort of thing. Thirdly, they will seek to violate your boundaries and bring out the worst in you. So they will constantly violate your boundaries. If you say, look, just call us before you come by, and all of a sudden they just drop in. And now you're getting frustrated. Now you're getting angry. And you'll say, look, just give us a 30-minute heads up so we can at least, put the baby to bed, clean up, whatever. No, they just drop in. They just open the door. They just walk in. And as they violate your boundaries, they start bringing out the worst in you. And now you become aggravated, frustrated, irritated at your in-laws or at your neighbors or whoever it may be. Just say, when you say to them, hey, look, just ask me to borrow my lawnmower and I'll let you borrow it, but just ask me. No, they just come by and get your lawnmower and start cutting their grass. So they violate your boundaries, and now you're going, I don't want to be a part of this person's life. I don't want this person in my life. And so anyway, they seek to violate your boundaries and bring out the worst in you. Next, for those who are involved with the narcissist, and this is some of their abuse, they try to put you on defense to prove that you are not the one, to prove that they're not the one with the problem. So they'll put you on the defense, and so you're constantly now on the defense because the narcissist will make it clear they are not the one with the problem. And so now you're constantly trying to prove yourself. You're constantly trying to defend yourself. You're constantly trying, but I was a good dad. I did the best that I could. Your mom and I saved as much as we could for your college. Well, you didn't save enough for my college. Well, your mom and I, we wanted to get you a car, but this is all we could afford. Well, I wanted a brand new car. That kind of thing. So they are constantly putting you on the defense to prove that you're the one with the problem. And again, they're the one who's quote unquote suffering. Next, they expect you to clean up the mess they created. So if they get thrown in jail, if they fail, if they flunk out, if they don't graduate on time, if they didn't turn in their homework assignment, if they stole from Walmart or whatever it may be, they expect you to clean up the mess they created. They expect you to solve the problem they created. They don't care financially, legally, but they expect you to come behind them and bail them out, make it right, call the principal, call the teacher, call their boss, get them back in school, get them back on the job, get them out of jail, whatever it may be. They expect you to clean up the mess they created. And if you don't, then again, they continue now to punish. They continue now to abuse, which causes you, therefore, to waste energy on them and you neglect yourself.
Wow.
So as you're wasting your energy on them, you start neglecting yourself. One very simple illustration is you're watering their lawn while your lawn is dying. Okay. They have the beautiful green, lush, grassy yard where yours is brown and dirt and just, burning up. And so that's what happens because you're putting all of your energy, all of your effort cleaning up their mess while neglecting yourself. And this is why we see of our family, our friends, whatever, who gives money to their kids, and then all of a sudden they have nothing to retire on.
Right.
They spend all tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on their child's education, and now they're driving, a 1982 whatever.
Yeah.
And so because they just can't afford it, but they spend all this money on their kids' college, and the thing is, the kids blow through that money and still don't get a degree. And so what happens is they expect you to clean up the mess they created. You're solving their problems. You are bailing them out. You're giving them money. All the while, you're wasting your own energy and you're neglecting yourself. The sixth point is this. They want you to feel powerless and struck down. So again, back to this question for those of you who are just tuning in. So these kids, these grown adult children are not speaking to their dad, and now he doesn't know what to do. So he feels powerless. He feels struck down. He feels, what have I done? He feels like none of my kids really want anything to do with me. None of my kids really love me. None of my kids want me around. They're not even speaking to me. And that's what they want. They want you to feel powerless, and they want you to feel struck down. This is part of the narcissistic abuse for those who are just tuning in. Next, if you're keeping count, this is number 7. They want you to feel dependent or addicted to them. They want you to feel dependent. These grown kids feel like, hey, dad needs me. Dad needs my favor. Dad needs my blessing. Dad needs my attention. Dad needs my time. And so they want you to feel dependent or addicted to them. And the narcissist will do that. They will look for the person who is now dependent on them or even addicted to them. In other words, they just feel like, I got to see them. I got to talk to them. I got to have them in my life. I got to have their approval. I got to have their blessing. Next, number 8. The results of the narcissistic abuse is that you start feeling depressed. You start feeling anxious. You have a loss of energy. You may even have some physical, maybe even emotional pain as this narcissistic person is constantly abusing you day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And so part of the results is that you feel depressed, you feel anxious. I mean, you may have other things going on in your life. You may have a good job. You may have maybe a good church. You may have hobbies that you love to do. But none of those things matter anymore because of the narcissist in your life that's constantly abusing you. You feel depressed, anxious, loss of energy, lots of emotional pain. Number 9, you begin to lose also your values and your beliefs. In other words, you're not as close to God as you once were. Your values aren't as strong as they used to be. Your convictions aren't as deep as they used to be because of the abuse in your life. And last of all, number 10, you want to withdraw. Those who are abused by a narcissist eventually want to withdraw from life. They don't go to outings. They don't want to talk about their family. They especially don't want, in this case, this person says, hey, look, I want to tell you, about what's going on in my life. Well, how are you and your kids doing? And now all of a sudden, I don't want to talk about that. It's embarrassing. My kids don't talk to me. And so they just want to withdraw. They don't go to the functions. They don't go to the fellowship. They don't go to the Bible studies. They just withdraw because of what's going on in their life.
Well, you can see how when you look at all of those things and all of the ways that a narcissist does and wants to abuse you,
right,
how this could be so difficult when it's in the family context.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right? And you talked about, you start to feel like, I don't want this person in my life, and I don't want to be a part of their life,
right?
But you have a connection. These are your children,
right?
And so that can be really difficult.
So, which leads to the final question: what do you do?
Right.
So, what do you do?
How do you manage this?
So, how do you manage this? Well, so when there's narcissistic abuse in your life, if you're just tuning in, here's what one can do. We'll make this kind of quick. Number 1, reinvent and restructure your family. So, in this case, these kids don't want to talk to them. Well, okay, talk to their dad. These grown adults don't want to talk to their dad. then restructure your family. I'm sure there's a niece, there's a nephew. I'm sure there's, cousins and second cousins that want you in their life. So reinvent, restructure your family so that you have people in your life that care about you for who you are. Number 2, remind yourself of your worth and your value and your ability. Sometimes you need to be reminded, hey, look, I am an accomplished person. I have done this. I've accomplished that. I do have worth. I do have value. Just because my kids don't talk to me or my spouse, wants to neglect me doesn't mean I don't have value. And so remind yourself of that. Number 3, embrace those who care, who love for you for who you are. In other words, there are those that do love you for who you are. There are neighbors and friends and people in your Bible study and people in your small group and people in your church who do care about who you are for who you are.
Right.
They love you not because what you've done for them, what you give to them, how much money you pay out, but because
simply for who you are.
For who you are. Fourthly, embrace those who demonstrate appreciation. Those who appreciate you for who you are, for those who recognize what you've accomplished and are very grateful for what you've done in their life. Embrace those. Number 5, pray for those people who are going to abuse you. Jesus said that. Pray for those who spitefully use you and abuse you. Number 6, continue to create boundaries. Boundaries that are healthy, boundaries that are meaningful, boundaries that are lasting, but you have to create boundaries. Otherwise, the narcissistic person will just continue to berate you and abuse you and belittle you. Again, know who you're dealing with. Even though these may be our child or our adult children or our spouse or our neighbor or someone in our small group, know who you're dealing with, because you're going to be dealing with people who struggle with narcissistic tendencies and some with full-blown personality disorder. Know who you're dealing with so you know how to maneuver this. So you know what to look for. So you know when to create deeper, higher boundaries. But know who you're dealing with. We don't like to think of our kids or our spouse as being narcissistic, but they very well may be.
Yeah.
So know who you're dealing with. Which goes to number 8, which is pray for wisdom. I don't think we do that enough. The Word of God talks about praying for wisdom. It's one of those prayers that God guarantees to answer.
Right.
Pray for wisdom, He'll give it to you. So pray for wisdom. Pray to know what to do in these circumstances. Pray to know how to approach, in this case, your adult children. Pray to when you need to lean in towards them and maybe pull back from them as they continue to try to punish you and abuse you in this way. Number 9, don't grovel. It's okay to look and see, hey, what part did I play? What could I have done differently? It's okay to, look back over the film, if you will, and say, hey, I'd done it like this, if I could do it over again. But don't grovel. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to, again, take some authority and even take some ownership of what has happened here. But you don't grovel. The narcissist loves doormats. Don't be a doormat. Don't let the narcissist create and turn you into a doormat. And last of all, number 10, if you're keeping count, be willing to dialogue with some wisdom and some boundaries. I hope and pray this dad will, have the opportunity to dialogue, maybe one day with his children, maybe hopefully get some insight as to what they could do differently, maybe to bring some forgiveness, some hope, some healing into this. It's tough to do with narcissists, but narcissistic abuse is very real. And I think we have to be very careful of it, be very mindful of it. I think it's something that we need to be aware, even in our own situations, our own families, so that we are not abused or so that we are not being the abuser. Right. Being self-aware in both directions is so powerful and so important, so that you can begin to make some of the changes in your own life, as you pointed out earlier, as well as in the life of your family. But again, as we're closing, narcissistic abuse is real. It's something that we need to be mindful of and aware of. And it's something that, again, is really devastating, and it's a real thing in our families. So again, be willing to dialogue, use wisdom, and use lots of boundaries.
Well, there you have it from the family answer man himself. And we wanted to say thank you for joining us again. We hope that as you have heard this episode, that you will be inspired to make changes that will lead to a stronger, healthier, happier family.